All right, let's talk about Relooted. We're going to talk about Relooted really quick, and then we're going to get into High Guard because High Guard, oh man, High Guard is High Guard. What can I really say? So you guys know Relooted has released, and Relooted is a video game that is trying to rewrite history. That's really how it's going. It's trying to rewrite history, trying to change things, and it seems as if news organizations, especially those that are in Africa, are trying to pick up on that. So I came across this tweet, and it's so funny. I came across this tweet from BBC News Africa, where it says a new video game, Relooted, sees Africans fantasize about taking back treasures from Europe's museums. It is raising awareness about African culture, African history, and sort of the scale of this cultural artifact looting that has happened. I got to tell you, I never thought I would see this game on a news headline, but then here we are. Here we are. Can you imagine a game that has 57 concurrent players on Steam getting news outlets to report on it as if it's some sort of like, oh yeah, it's telling the real story, right? Now, the beautiful thing about all this is that Madam Savvy has just been absolutely just like destroying these people. And it's not just her, too. A lot of people have been playing this game and realizing, like, bro, this is kind of bullshit. Like, the story that you're trying to share is bullshit, and you're leaving out key details, right? So, Madam Savvy writes, let me make it bigger here. So, the very first tutorial artifact in this game, playing live now, check it out on YouTube, is the Silver Buffalo. She says, the Silver Buffalo belonged to Fan, people under the Danhome Kingdom. The game would have you believe that they were an artistic culture that believed in art and voodoo enthusiasts. The kingdom actually built its wealth on slave trading, but they always love to leave that out, by the way. You know what they did that with? They also did that with Woman King. You guys remember Woman King? Where on Woman King, they tried to make the tribes seem as if they were, these like strong, independent women, and they were responsible for fighting off the evil conquerors and all that stuff. Meanwhile, that fucking tribe literally participated in the slave trade, and the women were used to uphold the slave trade. But they completely rewrote history with that movie. Anyway, so they built its wealth on slave trading, and King Gizo took the throne from his brother by force after being gassed up by Francisco Felix de Sousa, a slave trader. The kingdom was constantly at war, and Gizo ended up burning his own capitals down instead of surrendering it to the French. My playthrough consists of looking up the actual history while playing, and you get two very different outlooks on events when playing the game versus looking at reality. Now, see, the problem is that with these video games, the biggest issue with this is that they do this purposefully, right? When they show you these things, they want to show you I guess whatever the nice side of history is, or the revised pretty side of history. They don't want certain people looking bad. They don't want to acknowledge the truth. And this is why we are doomed to repeat history. I keep telling people this all the time. The people that try to rewrite history and the people that try to avoid the problematic past of our history as a species, we are doomed to repeat it if we don't acknowledge it. This is the fucking truth. It has been happening over and over and over again. And it doesn't matter how much you try to pretty up history. We are still the same humans that we were back in the day. Sure, we could be more civilized. Sure, we could be more intelligent. But at the end of the day, deep down on a human animal level, we are the same people. And we are doomed to repeat the same mistakes if we do not learn from our history. And they don't want to learn from it. They rather hide it. It's like, why do you want to hide history? What's the point of hiding history? Why not just acknowledge that, yes, this tribe absolutely did take part in the slave trade. Yes, black people did sell their own. They did. They absolutely did. It happened. Yeah, I know it's problematic, but it happened. Right? And some of them were not forced to. Some of them were doing it on their own, well before they even were supposedly conquered or even visited by the evil white man. You know, they were selling their own people. So stop trying to avoid history, because history is going to allow you to learn from it. Right? I understand it ruins the narrative. I know, I get it. I get all that. But at the end of the day, you got to learn from it. you got to understand the history and you got to tell it like it is, man, like it really happened. But again, this is a video game, so they're gonna say, well, because it's a video game, we can make whatever we want. It doesn't matter. It's not meant to be a historically accurate whatever. It is what it is. So anyway, let's see what Madam Savvy says here. Let me scroll down. And then she says, here's a clip of the reading. She says, wow, thanks for all the love today on the Savvy Suffer Stream Relooted edition. We will finish the game and continue fact-checking tomorrow live. First artifact was heavily omitted. They have all this room for facts, but omit the basic information about the Dahomey and the Gizo. So let's see what this was the actual clip. It's 37 seconds long. Let's check this out.
King Gizo relied heavily on the slave trade as economic foundation for his kingdom.
Which, by the way, a lot of African kingdoms did at the time. Just so you're aware. The slave trade was extremely profitable. See, the thing is, people want to make the slave trade to be all about racism, right? Because that's the story that they're telling now, right? That's the story that they're banking on now and that they're relying on now. They're relying on the racism, narrative. So they need something to bolster that. And the slave trade, they're trying to turn into like this just big racism thing. But in all actuality, the slave trade was a business and one of the biggest businesses in the history of our time, to be honest with you. And it was all about money. It was not even specific to one race. It was all about money. There was races of people all across the planet, all different skin colors that were slaves. And the reason why is because, well, it was profitable and it was easy money. And that's what they relied on back then. Right. So the slave trade was all about business and it was inhumane. Sure. It absolutely was inhumane. There's no doubt about it, which is why it's not practiced by most civilized society today. Although, fun fact, there is still millions of slaves in this world in other countries. But we won't talk about that. Right. Regardless, the point is that the slave trade was massively profitable. And the main driving force behind the slave trade was not racism. It was money. And it always will be money. Money is the root of all evil. That is what pushed the slave trade through and through, right? But anyway, let's continue.
Heavily on the slave trade as economic foundation for his kingdom. The almost constant warfare that was required to maintain a steady supply of captured slaves resulted in a culture of militarism centered on the person of the king. According to some sources, such precious metal-covered objects were not simply prestige objects. I loved prestiging in Call of Duty. Might be filled with supernaturally potent materials to protect the monarch and aid him in his military exploits. King Gizo relied heavily on the slave trade as economic...
Yep, that's it. So, again, guys, this whole thing is just actually kind of damn hilarious. She has multiple posts kind of going over that. Go check out Madam Savvy, obviously. Show her some love on the page. But yeah, this whole thing, they're trying to push the narrative that if you don't play Relooted, you're basically racist. And the reason why they're doing that is because, quite frankly, they just don't have a means to make anybody else want to play this game. This game has tens of thousands of likes, right? Over on social media. We covered this yesterday, and I'm just going to cover it again really quick. Tens of thousands of likes on social media. Okay, this game is not blowing up on social media, but it's got good engagement, right? Tens of thousands of likes on social media, thousands of reposts and quote tweets, thousands of comments, and yet for some reason can only maintain 57 players. It can only maintain 57 concurrent players, which means that this game sold probably a few hundred copies, give or take. And you also got to remember that a lot of these are free copies that are given out to streamers, free copies that are given out to journos, free copies that are given out to friends and family. You also have developers that are playing the game too. So all of that is in this 57 number. All of that is in this 57 number, right? So like to try to make that claim, look, there's nobody watching this right now. There was 240 people watching the game right now. It had an all-time comedy peak of 45,000 on Twitch. So 45,000 people decided to watch someone else play the game, but then only 57 people actually played the game concurrently. So only a couple of hundred people played the game. The fuck are we doing? And they'll try to say, oh, well, it's because this game is on Game Pass. Come on, let's fuck. Can we stop this? Can we stop this? Just like I want people to stop lying about High Guard. Can we stop lying about Game Pass? Game Pass is people treat it as like an extended demo. So if somebody plays something on Game Pass and they also have a Steam account, if they really like the game, they'll probably buy it on Steam. That happens quite often, by the way. That happens quite often. The whole Game Pass excuse for why all these video games just, flop or whatever, it's such a cope. The game just straight up fucking flopped. Let's stop lying about it. Let's stop beating around the bush. It's not racism to say that this game flopped. This game flopped. Everybody knew the game was going to flop because it was a game that was marketed to pretty much almost nobody. And even some of the most hardcore virtue signaling people on social media that love to talk about this game and love to talk about owning the chuds or whatever the case may be, even they didn't play it. You didn't see any of these shills on Twitter that shill for things like this play the game. You didn't see the Mighty Keys play the game. You didn't see any of these people play. Nobody played the game other than the supposed chuds. And then they'll get mad that the chuds played the game and they'll be like, well, you're only playing it for content. Well, I mean, shit, at least somebody's playing the fucking game. At least somebody paid money for the game. Shit, you could get the game for free with all your access and you still won't play the game. And then when you tell them that, they're like, well, it's just, it's not my kind of game. I don't have any. Well, shit, you and everybody else, apparently. So stop getting mad at the chuds that actually spent money on this game to play it, whether they played it sincerely or whether they played it for content. It doesn't matter. At least somebody fucking played the game because we all know I'm damn sure it wasn't you. But I don't know, man. It is what it is. At this point, I've come to expect it from these people. They will never play the games they virtue signal for. They will never touch the games that they claim, that are so important. They're so important. These games are so important, guys. They're so important for representation. It's so nice for whatever, they will never do it. But apparently the chuds playing it, well, that's just not allowed. You can't do that. You're doing it for work. That's just not allowed. The fuck out of here, bro. Anyway, so that's the Relooted story. The BBC News of Africa is utilizing it to push their propaganda of revisionist history for whatever that reason may be. And that is truthfully why these games are made.